Jeff, where have you been? I've been looking all over town for you.
I've been right here, and as you can see, I've been here for quite some period of time. I got my books. I got drugs, crime, I got medical books, I got other books, all on DRE, Drug Recognition Expert. It's something I want to be, and I got to get involved in this, so I'm studying up. What do you think? But this test is...
You forgot about somebody who was visiting us today for Police Beat. Paul Helzer, your friend,
Yeah.
for
Let's-
the DRE stuff.
Maybe we should bring him in and ask him some questions, and maybe I don't have to go through all this.
He's with me.
Great. Paul, come on in.
Hi, Peter.
Good to see
Boy,
you.
you're studying pretty hard here.
Well, I am. This is Paul Helzer, and he's the program administrator with the Colorado Division of Highway Safety, CDOT, and he administers the DRE program. We can find out the answers we want to know, Ann.
Yes.
Cool. Paul, can you tell me to start off our show this month?
Sure.
Exactly what is DRE and how did it come to be in Colorado?
Well, you know, DRE has only been around for about 10 years. But back in LAPD in the early 70s, these officers were arresting a lot of people thinking they were under the influence of alcohol. Come to find out they were sober. And the officers knew there was alcohol not involved, but there was drugs and they had no test. So LAPD devised a roadside procedure, including chemical testing, to determine if they're under the influence of drugs.
Okay.
Well, back in '83, the federal DOT standardized that course, and Colorado was the second state in the nation to go to the DRE.
Wow.
So we've been involved in DRE since 1988, and we've had very good results with picking up that drug-impaired driver.
Well, you know, Paul, I've been researching here a
Yeah,
little.
a lot of stuff here.
Well, I found out that there are 7 major categories of drugs.
Good studying, yeah.
And this is what the DREs are up on. Could you explain this a little bit to our viewers?
Right. When a DRE evaluates a suspect, a person, they can, by their training, narrow it down to 7 drug categories. The first drug category is depressants. Alcohol would be in that, but many other prescription drugs. Then the opposite of that would be stimulants. The most popular one, of course, cocaine. Then hallucinogens, which would be
LSD.
Good one,
right.
LSD.
There you go.
And then the fourth category, we don't see a lot in Colorado, PCP.
Okay.
Angel dust, those kind, very bad drug. Narcotic analgesic, pain relievers.
Okay.
Inhalants, do you get much inhalants up here?
Glue and stuff like that?
Pain sniffing.
No,
that's-
we have paint sniffing,
right.
Yeah,
very
we have that.
popular.
And then, of course, you know, the most popular one, unfortunately, is cannabis, THC.
Okay.
So those are the 7 drug categories that the DRE can narrow it down for that, and that's very important because of the signs and symptoms, but for urinalysis when they ask for that chemical test.
Paul, in a little bit, we're going to be finding out what the most popular drug of choice is in Fort Collins. What is it for this whole state of Colorado?
I'm looking at a chart here from 1996. The DRE has evaluated just over 900 people for driving under the influence of drugs, and the majority of drugs were cannabis, followed by stimulants, then depressants. And a lot of that is a combination with alcohol. So your top 3 are your depressants, stimulants, with the number 1 being cannabis.
So Paul, with us out on the street as officers, we kind of learned some different behaviors and paraphernalia to look
Sure.
for drug abusers. But what can the general public and parents of some kids who might be using it look for at home regarding items laying around the house or their weird behaviors going on?
Right, that's a good question. I think it's very important if you're at a party and you think somebody's going to drive away, you know they haven't been using alcohol, or if you're a parent, probably the biggest thing, if you're a parent and you've known that person in the past, is a change in behavior. Do they start hanging out with new friends? Do they wear different types of clothes? The odor of marijuana is a very distinctive burnt rope smell type of thing. Of course, if they're using hard drugs such as cocaine, it'll constrict the pupils, while marijuana will slightly dilate the pupils and it'll turn the white of the eye red, much like if you're in a smoke-filled rooms. But it's the subtle signs that a parent can pick up on, just a change in behavior.
So, Paul, we've talked a little bit about the Colorado aspect of DRE. What about nationally?
Well, you know, drugs and driving is a problem throughout the nation. But right now, you know, this is not a local program. It's a national program. 38 states and the District of Columbia have this program. Germany, Canada, and Australia are looking into the same program. So it's virtually accepted throughout the world.
Okay.
Now, I know you've done a lot of work here, but you know, I put this paper together. It'll tell you all you need to do to qualify to become a DRE.
Cool.
Look through that. If you're qualified, I'll look for your application.
Great. Thanks for being here with us.
You bet.
Okay, Jeff, I think we could pack this all up and let's go talk to one of our local DRE officers. Might make it easier for you.
Great.
We're sitting here with one of our drug recognition experts, Officer Ginger Mose. And Ginger, now that we've met with Paul regarding the state of Colorado with DRE, why don't you kind of explain the program here at Fort Collins Police Services?
Well, the DRE program started in 1993, where Officer Dodd was our first and only DRE. Now in 1997, we have 3 current DREs and 1 DRE coordinator. Sergeant Craig Dodd now is our DRE coordinator. Myself, David Edstrom, and Doug Miller are all DREs here at Fort Collins Police Department.
Are the DREs strictly for Fort Collins Police Department use, or are you available to any other law enforcement agency here in the county that might have need of you?
We're available to anyone in the county. We primarily work, of course, in Fort Collins. However, if there's not a DRE available in Larimer County, we're willing to go out into the county and even possibly to Loveland to do a DRE. Any amount of action that we can take to stop someone from driving under the influence of drugs will do.
So Ginger, tell me, what's the drug of choice in Fort Collins, or the drug that you seem to be coming across the most that are being used and abused by people that you come in contact with?
Well, Jeff, as a DUI officer right now, both one of the other DREs, David Edstrom, and myself, run into a lot of DUIs. When we're talking about specifically DREs, we're talking about mostly cannabis or marijuana use. A lot of times that's mixed with alcohol. A lot of times it's mixed with other drugs, stimulants and narcotic analgesics, and depending on the person and what they're doing. But cannabis would definitely be the most prevalent arrest for us here at Fort Collins.
So that's actually one of the things that we saw earlier you doing. You actually test the person, even though your suspicion is that they're under the influence of drugs, you test them for alcohol also.
Initially, we test them for alcohol to kind of rule that out. If someone has drank a lot of alcohol and smoked some marijuana, but their BRAC or their breath test shows like over a 0.1, which is double the legal limit here in Colorado, we probably would not go into a drug recognition evaluation because the charge is already there for DUI.
Okay.
Ginger, when you're talking about illegal drugs, there's also some legal drugs that people take, either prescribed for their doctor, over-the-counter things. When it says "do not drive," do we need to take that literally, or can we get arrested for driving under the influence of something like that?
Well, most of the most common thing we're going to see is painkillers, which fall under the drug category of narcotic analgesics. Percodan, Demerol, Percocet, all those kind of drugs, and many others, are usually preferred by doctors to not operate a motor vehicle while under the influence of those drugs.
Why not? What's it do to you?
Okay. Their ability to drive is going to be impaired, even under the influence of a prescription medicine. Even if they didn't take more than they're supposed to, their ability to drive is impaired. There's a lot of times with narcotic analgesics, their reactions are going to be slower. Narcotic analgesics are painkillers, so they're not going to feel any pain. They're not going to react where they should react. They're not going to be able to think as quick as they need to think. If a kid or another car pulls out in front of them, a lot of times, if you're under the influence of those kind of drugs, you get really tired and sleepy. There's a possibility you could fall asleep at the wheel. You're going to take corners too slow. There's some severe consequences for what you would think is just doing what your doctor said, even though you're not supposed to be driving under the influence of those kind of drugs.
Once you have somebody in your custody, what do you do to them?
Well, for instance, if I were to pull someone over for a driving violation, I noticed that maybe their ability to, their coordination in order to getting their registration and their insurance and their driver's license out, as well as their eyes may be bloodshot and watery, slurred speech, they may be slow in reaction. I'm going to notice all of these things, and as I make determinations from that, I will then decide that they're under the influence of something, okay? Once I've done that, I usually arrest. I do standardized field sobriety tests on the road to determine if their divided attention is there, if they can think of more things than just one thing, which these tests are specifically done to determine that. Once I've done that, then I bring them to Fort Collins Police Department, and I have them blow a breath test so that I can determine what their alcohol level is.
We saw that.
Right, and then I take them into a room where there's a dark room accessible. I ask them some questions regarding what they've eaten, any medications they've taken, stuff like that. I Mirandize them because I am going to be asking them specific questions about their actions before I contacted them, as well as a darkroom evaluation. I look at their eyes under 4 different conditions of light. I evaluate their pulse 3 times during the whole process separately. So we get to see a pulse through a range of time, as well as blood pressure, temperature. All those things are indications of drug use. And based on the totality of what I get at the end, I determine if this person is under the influence of drug, and I make an opinion of what drug, and there's 7 drug categories. So I make an opinion of what drug category or categories the person is under the influence of.
How long does it take you to go through this whole process?
If the person's cooperative, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes, so anywhere between 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. From the time of arrest until the time of release, it's usually about 2 hours because of the time on the road and trying to release them to somebody and stuff.
And one interesting aspect is that this isn't guesswork. This is scientific evidence that has been accepted by courts.
Correct.
The DRA officer is really a special classification of officers to be able to testify to this in a court of law and be accepted.
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us, Ginger.
Thanks, Jeff.
So Jeff, do you think the public will get an idea what it feels like to have a light shine in their eyes when they're with a DRE expert?
I don't know, I got a
Like-
pretty good.
Like you? Now look it. If I just look in your eye and look at your pupil,
Uh-huh.
according to their little things, I bet you it says you've had too much coffee stimulation today.
I think so. Well, I'll tell you, I've learned an awful lot about the DRE program, both state and nationally here on this one show, and we hope you have too. Next month, we'll probably be doing a show on Larimer County Sheriff's Department Traffic Unit, which was just recently formulated under a state grant. So we'll see you next month.
Have a fun summer.
The 14th Annual National Night Out will be celebrated in Fort Collins this year on Tuesday night, August the 5th, from 6 to 9 p.m. If you have a neighborhood event or would like to be involved in a neighborhood event, please call the Fort Collins Police Department or District 1 substation. Citizens and neighborhood groups play an important role in crime detection and prevention, drug education, and fostering the relationships that are vital to effective neighborhood communication. Please join us on Tuesday, August the 5th in celebrating the 14th Annual National Night Out. Thank you.